Alright, buckle up, because we're about to dive into the political riddle wrapped in an enigma, deep-fried in ambiguity that is Danielle Smith's stance on Alberta separatism. And trust me, by the time we're done here, you'll either have clarity or at least a really good conspiracy theory to share at your next Tim Hortons run. So here's the deal. Alberta's premier has been playing a political game of Twister that would make even the most flexible yoga instructor jealous. She says she wants a sovereign Alberta within a united Canada. Now, if that phrase doesn't make your brain do a backflip, you haven't been paying attention. That's like saying you want to be single while staying married, or that you want your poutine without gravy or cheese curds. It just doesn't compute, folks. But before we get into the meat and potatoes of this political mystery, let me paint you a picture. Imagine if I told you I was going to throw a party, but I didn't want any guests. Or that I was going to bake a cake, but without flour, eggs, or sugar. You'd probably look at me like I'd been huffing too much Chinook wind, right? Well, that's essentially what we're dealing with here when Smith talks about sovereignty and unity in the same breath. Now, to understand where we're headed, we need to take a little field trip across the pond to the United Kingdom, circa 2016. Remember Brexit? Of course you do. It was like watching a slow-motion car crash while eating popcorn and wondering if this was real life or some weird political reality show. David Cameron, the British Prime Minister at the time, actually promised a referendum on leaving the European Union. He campaigned on it, won an election because of it, and then proceeded to lose that very referendum he championed. The next day, he was gone faster than your willpower at an all-you-can-eat buffet. At least Cameron had the guts to put his cards on the table, even if those cards ended up being a losing hand. But here's where things get spicy with our dear Premier Smith. Unlike Cameron, she's never actually promised Albertans a referendum on leaving Canada. She's never run an election saying, "Vote for me and we'll decide if we should peace out from Confederation." Nope. Instead, she's been about as clear as mud on a rainy day in Calgary, dancing around the issue like it's a minefield made of political dynamite. Smith's whole vibe is this carefully choreographed performance where she says just enough to keep the separatist crowd happy without actually committing to anything concrete. It's like watching someone order a salad at a steakhouse just to seem health conscious, but then they drown it in ranch dressing and bacon bits. You're not fooling anyone, and we all know what you really want. Let's break down this sovereign Alberta within a united Canada thing for a second, because it's important. Sovereignty, in the most basic political science terms, means you're the boss of you. You make your own rules, you control your own destiny, you're the captain of your own ship. But here's the kicker, if Alberta is sovereign, that means Canada doesn't have authority over it. And if Canada doesn't have authority over Alberta, then Canada isn't exactly united, is it? It's like being part of a band but refusing to play the same song as everyone else. Eventually, people are going to realize you're not really in the band anymore. This isn't some abstract philosophical debate we're having here. This is basic logic. You can't be both independent and dependent. You can't be both inside and outside. You can't have your Nanaimo bar and eat it too while claiming you're on a diet. Pick a lane, Danielle. But here's where the Cameron comparison gets really interesting. Cameron at least had the decency to be upfront about what he was doing. He said, "We're going to have a vote about this massive, country-altering decision," and then he let the people decide. Whether you agreed with him or not, at least you knew where he stood. Smith, on the other hand, is playing this game where she pushes forward with referendum legislation and sovereignty acts without ever actually promising the people of Alberta that she would do this. It's like someone redecorating your entire house while you're on vacation and then acting surprised when you're upset because, technically, they never promised they wouldn't. The Alberta Sovereignty Act, for those who haven't been following along, is basically Smith's way of giving the federal government the finger without actually leaving Confederation. It's the political equivalent of a teenager slamming their bedroom door and yelling, "You can't tell me what to do," while still living in their parents' basement and eating their groceries. Sure, it makes a statement, but at the end of the day, you're still under the same roof. And now we're looking at potential referendums on the horizon. Referendums that could ask Albertans whether they want to pull out of federal programs, whether they want to challenge federal legislation, whether they want to basically turn Alberta into Canada's rebellious teenager who's totally mature enough to make their own decisions, Mom. But here's the million-dollar question, is Danielle Smith actually a separatist? Because if we're judging by her words, she'll tell you absolutely not. She loves Canada. She just wants Alberta to have special treatment. But if we're judging by her actions, well, that's where things get murky. Her grandfather apparently used to say that actions speak louder than words, and he wasn't wrong. The man commanded warships on D-Day, so I'm inclined to trust his judgment on reading situations. Smith's actions paint a picture of someone who's either testing the waters for full-blown separation or someone who's pandering to a separatist base while hoping she never actually has to follow through. Either way, it's a dangerous game to play with the future of an entire province. Because here's the thing about referendums, once you ask the question, you have to be prepared for any answer. And if you're not actually willing to follow through with separation, maybe don't light that particular fire. The Brexit comparison isn't just some random historical reference. It's a warning sign. The UK asked a question thinking they knew what the answer would be, and when they got the wrong answer, they spent the next several years in complete chaos trying to figure out what they'd actually agreed to. It was like ordering something online without reading the description and then being shocked when it arrives and it's nothing like you expected. Do we really want Alberta to be Canada's version of that political experiment? What makes Smith's approach particularly interesting, and by interesting I mean potentially catastrophic, is that she's creating all the infrastructure for separation without actually committing to it. It's like building a launch pad for a rocket ship while insisting you have no plans to go to space. Maybe you're telling the truth, or maybe you're just waiting for the right moment to blast off. The reality is that Smith is playing to a base that feels alienated from the rest of Canada. And those feelings are real and valid, whether you agree with them or not. The West has legitimate grievances about representation and resource management and federal policies that seem to ignore prairie realities. But the question is whether stoking separatist sentiment, even if you claim you're not actually a separatist, is a responsible way to address those grievances. Or is it just pouring gasoline on a fire you're pretending you don't want to spread? Because at the end of the day, flirting with separation has consequences. It scares away investment. It creates uncertainty. It damages relationships with the rest of the country. And once that trust is broken, it's really hard to rebuild. It's like telling your partner you're thinking about breaking up every time you have an argument. Eventually, even if you never actually leave, the relationship is poisoned by the constant threat. So is Danielle Smith a separatist? Based on her words, no. Based on her actions, it's complicated. But maybe the better question is, does it even matter what label we slap on her if the end result is the same? If you're building the road to separation brick by brick, does it really matter if you claim you're just going for a walk? What we do know is this: Smith has entered what her critics are calling perilous territory. She's opened doors that previous premiers kept firmly locked. She's normalized conversations that used to be fringe. And she's done it all while maintaining plausible deniability about her ultimate intentions. History will judge whether this was brilliant political strategy or reckless endangerment of national unity. But for now, all we can do is watch, wait, and maybe stock up on popcorn, because this political drama is far from over. If you found this deep dive into Alberta's sovereignty circus as fascinating as I did, smash that like button and subscribe to Canadian Insights, because trust me, with the way Canadian politics is going right now, we're going to have plenty more to talk about. Drop a comment below and tell me what you think. Is Smith playing four-dimensional chess, or is she just making it up as she goes along? And if you want to stay on top of all the political chaos happening across this great nation of ours, hit that notification bell, because we're posting content daily to keep you informed, entertained, and maybe just a little bit concerned about where we're headed. I'm out.